Oh yeah, this is the one called that all it knows just has an object set over his shit. He has an object that tells this what oh no, this fine. My job. No, not you. Have you been looking? Has he started originally? You don't pass anything? No, my second portion. So then you have to change it just 3 months later. I think you're last, the last budget. I don't know what's the 4 hours.
All right. Good evening. Let's go ahead and get started. Somehow my portable mic has been stolen. Must be those nurses who are taking courses over here. I can't find my portable mic. So I'll try to speak in this, and we'll see if I can get that mic back. I don't know, internet. I don't know if it's working for you guys. It's not working as well for me, so I'm not sure if they have fixed it or not. I'm on UA guest. Seems like I'm still having some issues, but the streaming link is up. Hopefully it was fixed. Let me tell Brent. Okay. All right. So before we start the class today, let me go over what we will be working on, what we have completed, what is remaining. Today, towards the end of the class, new homework will be introduced. I have updated the due date. The homework is due next Thursday. Okay, we'll introduce it today. It's due next Thursday. I'm going to talk about what are the relevant activities for that homework, because you will see there's a lot of activities over here. So I'll go through them quickly so that you guys know which ones are related to the homework and which one are not. Okay. So the first thing is you will see 3 folders in your GitLab for React, which says React 1, 2, and 3. Maybe kind of a little bigger. Okay. So everything from 19 we have covered. All the activities from week 19 should be covered, and if you're going back and revising, then these are from everything from week 19 needs to be known. Okay, you should know everything from week 19. Now if you go to week number 20, activities from week number 20, from 1 to let's see, use 1 to 6. Okay, 1 to 6 are mandatory. Those are part of the syllabus. Okay, 1 to 6. All right. Everything after that is optional, and this is something, these are all optional topics. They are actually not part of the course or the syllabus, but they are new to React, and this was my plan to go over them, but we went to the revision part, so we never covered it. We did briefly cover it towards the end of the previous class. For those of you who were here, we covered the hooks part. Half the class, intentionally you were working on the other thing, so that's okay. But everything after number 7 to towards the end of these things, these are optional. You won't have any homework for this. You don't have to know these things to complete your homework at all. Okay, so the more important are 1 to 6. 1 to 6 are required if you're going to complete the next homework. Okay, there are a few more, and I'll talk about those activities in week 21. But from your week 21 folder, from your week 20 folder, 1 to 6, those are required. Okay, everything else is optional. Now, for people who are here for React hooks, if you want, these activities are there. They will help you, and they have some newer topics. But for those of you who are still kind of learning props and state, please don't look into these activities. They are going to confuse you. Okay, what you have to look into is 1 to 6. 1 to 6 cover everything that we have covered. Okay, the next examples that we will be doing today, I'm going to make sure that I only solve those, or you guys are going to solve those using what we have covered as with the whole class. Okay, none of the new stuff. Okay, again, after graduating, I have uploaded these so that you guys can come back when you guys are more efficient in React. You want to learn hooks. These are activities that are there that these will help you understand hooks better. Okay. Going on to week number 21. That's the week that we are on currently. From week 21 activities, you can skip all starting from 1 to 7. 1 to 7, I'm not going to cover 1 to 7. Again, these are carryover from the previous week, and again, these involve knowledge for hooks and everything. Okay, so you can skip 1 to 7. We are not going to cover those, but these are here for those people who were present in the hooks class, and for future, if you want to come back, you want to learn about hooks, and you are looking for some activities, these are there. Okay, so from week 21, 1 to 7, you can skip them. Okay, we are going to cover 8 to 13, very important, and these are important for your homework as well. Okay, so from week 21, activities number 8 to 13, that's what we are going to cover today. They are important for your homework and for your project as well. Okay, now when the TAs introduce the homework today, for people who are interested, you can use React hooks in the homework if you want. Okay, these are for people who have a good understanding about React. Okay, not required, but your homework can be done without that as well. Okay, all these activities that I'm mentioning, 8 to 12, 13, and the activities that I mentioned from week number 20, those are important for your homework. The rest of these are optional. You don't need to know these activities to complete your homework. Okay, what you need to know is activities number 8 to 13 definitely. Okay, I am aware, so I'm going to solve, we are going to talk about these activities. You guys are going to solve these activities with the concepts that we have learned uh, in the class as a whole. Okay, so state, props, not using hooks or anything. Okay, is that clear? Any questions? Okay, now from the concept wise, today there's nothing new. We have covered every single thing. We have covered React, so that was the end of the React. There's nothing new that we are going to cover when it comes to React. Okay, what we are going to cover today is we are going to bring all our concepts together, and we're going to go through some of the activities that would be the precursor for your projects. Okay, remember, we are learning the MERN stack, MERN. So we have covered all these things maybe individually. We have covered MongoDB, we have covered Express, we have covered React as well, and now we have covered Node as well. Okay, so the activities that we are going to be looking today are going to be centered around everything coming together. Okay, we have looked everything individually, we have looked React individually, we have looked MongoDB individually, we have looked Express and Node individually. Okay, so today's focus would be to look at all these 4 technologies together to build a full stack app, and that's what you will be doing in your projects as well. Okay, is that clear? Everybody understand? All right, the next thing, in our revision week, you saw how I did activities. I built those activities from ground up, like from scratch. Did not start from unsolved one, did not do that. Okay, just a reminder, of course, that's not possible in every class. Okay, we had time, we had revision, that's why we did it, right? What we do in the class is we use the unsolved template, and then we try to complete that activity, and that's what I'm going to go back and we'll be doing that, right? Of course, there's no time. It's not possible for me to do every single activity from ground up. Okay, what we'll go back to the same format. We will be solving the unsolved one, but please go back and do those activities that I did in revision. Okay, go back every activity that we are going to do over here. Once you are comfortable with solving with the boilerplate code that you have in the unsolved one, make sure you go and do it from scratch. Okay, don't start doing from scratch if you don't understand the layout. If you're not able to solve these activities, for example, let's look at the first one that we will solve. So in this folder, you already have an unsolved folder which has some code in it. Okay, if you're not able to solve this activity, even using this code, please don't attempt to create it on your own. The first thing is you understand what code has been given to you and you are able to solve this activity. Okay, once you are done with it, you are comfortable, you're like, okay, I know what's going on. The next challenge would be, okay, just read the readme file and see what the ask is. Okay, and then create the whole thing on your own. Okay, that's the next step. Right, but of course we will be in the class, will be solving the unsolved one. But that's why I showed you in the revision week. I would highly recommend solving those activities in the same fashion. Okay? All right, any questions before we start today's lecture? Everybody clear? No questions? Good? Okay, so we'll be starting from activity number 8 and we'll go up to 13. Okay, and these are important. These will help you with your project as well. Okay, all right, so we'll start with the first activity, which is number 8, and I'm going to talk about what activity number 8 does. Okay. All right. So activity number 8, you will see a template file called Create React Express. This has a code, everything that is required to create a MERN app. Okay. This is the starter template. This is the code that you can use when you are starting your project. Okay. Recommended. If you don't want to, it's fine. But this code has everything that is required to create a app, a project using the MERN stack. It has your Node.js code, so you will see server.js. It has your client code, and if you open up client, you will see it has all the React code. Okay, so this simple template has everything that is required to create a MERN app. Okay. You can use this as a starting template for your project. Highly recommended. If you don't want it, you can create your own thing. But this app, this template will guarantee that you can come up with an app that has Mongo, Express, React, and Node. Okay? So I'm going to go over it so that you understand how this contains every single thing, and all the activities that follow from here on are using the same template. Okay? This is just a bare bone full stack app for MERN. Of course, you will see it doesn't have controllers. You won't see any models folder, nothing those sort. Okay, this is just a starting template that you would use in your project. Okay, in your project, you are going to be using MVC design pattern from your project too. So all of those things are going to come over here. Okay, in the next activities, you will see how those folders come in. But I would recommend when you're starting your project, you can use this one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this one, starting template, what those files mean. We're going to install our packages. We're going to make sure it's running locally, and then I'm going to deploy it on Heroku as well, so that you guys know that I'm not lying. This template actually works. Okay, I'll go from starting template. I'm going to deploy it in Heroku, make sure everything is working. I know you guys had a lot of issues with deployment. This uses Node.js. Of course, we cannot deploy it on GitHub, so we'll use Heroku, and I will deploy the exact same thing on Heroku. You guys will follow along so that we are sure that this is working. Okay, is that fair? Okay, so this will help you when you are using the same template in your projects. You should be assured that this is going to work. Okay, so the first thing is your client folder. So what is client folder? This is all the this has all the React code. So if you go ahead and open this, you will see this is following the exact same thing that React has. Okay, we have taken the template from the Create React app and put it inside a folder called client. All right, same public folder from your React source folder has all your components and starting thing. Okay, package JSON. This is for React. So you will see you have two package JSONs. Okay, one is inside the client folder and one is outside the client folder. Okay, does that make sense? Before going into the details, do you guys see why there are two or what each one of them would mean? There's a package JSON inside the client and there's a package JSON outside the client folder, but on the main root folder. Any guesses why there are two or what each one corresponds to? What is it? Server and client. Excellent. That's why there are two. So the outside one, package JSON, is for your server code, which means it's for your Node application. All right. These will have all the packages that are required to run your server or your Node.js code. Okay. Remember that. Will this package JSON have React libraries? It will not. Why? Because React is not running on your Node.js. You require all your Node packages are going to be in your outside package JSON. Okay. The package JSON inside your client contains all the packages, all the libraries that are required to run a React application. Okay. So that's why you have two different ones. All right. This one is going to run dependencies that are on your server, for example, Express, NodeMon, environment, and all of these. Okay, that's the outside packages.
So when you do a npm install,
yes,
do you have to go to that specific
good
folder then to?
No, good question, and that's I'm coming to that. How would you install those? Okay. Then the client one, if you open this up, this is the same one that you get when you do a create React app. Okay. So these are all the React dependencies. So there are two different packages. And now once you are doing your project, you would need some third-party applications. You just need to understand, do they go on your client side or do they go on your server side? For example, React Router DOM. Okay, React Router, where does it go? Does it go on the client side or does it go on your server packages? And which one, where do you think it goes? Client. Why? Because my React app requires the React Router. My Node.js, there's nothing such as React Router, so it wouldn't even work. Okay, so you would be including that dependency over here in your client package JSON. All right. All right. Any question? Does everybody understand the difference? This is probably I've seen the most challenging concept when people are trying, because your client and your server are in the same folder, and that's when people get confused. They're trying to use some packages that are not going to work on your client side, but they're like, well, I have this package and I'm not able to import it. Yes, because it's not, you're putting it in the wrong position. It goes on your server side or vice versa. Okay, so please understand the differentiation. The folder client has all your React code. Okay, outside the client folder, you cannot put anything remotely close to React. Okay, all your code that is relevant to your React app has to go inside your client folder. Anything that is related to Node.js will be outside this client folder over here. All your controllers, all your models, all your MongoDB connections, everything go outside the client folder. Okay? This package.json, the package.json that is on your root folder corresponds to your Node.js code. Anything that you require in your Node code, you are going to put in the package.json that is outside. Okay? If you put this package.json inside over here, it's not going to work. All right? It's going to go ahead and install the library on your browser on your React side, but that's not what you want. Okay? Make sure you understand the differences. Okay? Now, how do I install? Do I need to go inside the client folder and install package.json? Then I need to come outside and do it? What Kelly was asking, no. If you run npm I on your root folder, which is your root folder is create React Express, npm is smart enough, it will find every single package.json and it will install in the correct path. So it's going to find package.json over here. It's going to install your npm packages on the root folder. Then it's going to find your client folder, and then it's going to find a package.json. Then it's going to install npm packages related to this in the appropriate path. Okay, so you don't have to worry where it is going, if it is installed or not. You just have to run an npm I on the root folder, and it's going to install all the relevant libraries that are required in the correct position. All right, npm will take care of that. And we'll see that example in a bit. Okay. The last thing that I want you to see is inside your client package JSON, you will see an extra line over here called proxy localhost 3001. Okay, what what port number does our React app runs on locally? 3000. Okay, so when you're running your local React app locally, your port number 3000 is already booked, it's already gone. You cannot run anything else on that port, right? If you try to, you see you get an error saying port already in use. Okay, but my Node application also requires a port to run on, right? When you start your Node app, it runs on a port number, right? So that port number cannot be 3000. You can put anything else, it cannot be 3000. It cannot be the same port number that your React app is using. Okay, so what do? We are going to run our Node.js in a different port number. So if you open your server.js, it's a different port number. We have selected 3001. It can be anything other than 3000. Okay, in your client package, you will see it is corresponding to port number 3001, which is the port number for our Node.js app. Okay, this thing, if you are running your code locally, your client is running on the same machine, your server is also running on the same machine, which is localhost, right? Your React app is also running on localhost, your Node.js is also running on localhost. Okay, but they're both running on different port numbers, right? So in your React app, you have to specify, you have to tell where your server is. That's where the proxy comes in. Okay, if you do not mention that, you will see that when you're running the code locally, you will get CORS issues and it won't be able to recognize where your server is. Okay, we'll see in the next activity. You won't be able to see over here because we actually don't have any server-side code. We don't have any APIs. It's just one API which gets everything. So you won't see that issue right now. But if you face an issue, if your React app is not able to contact your server, this is probably the reason. You might not have a proxy set over here. Okay, this comes built in your code over here if you're using this, but I wanted to point out so that you know what is the relevance of this proxy over here. Okay, so basically this is basically telling where your server code is running. That's what it is doing. Okay, and it is only important once your app is running locally on localhost. When you deploy to Heroku, this thing doesn't matter. Okay, this is only important when you are running locally. Okay, we will keep this over here. Once we do some more activities, you will see when we have more APIs, we'll go ahead and remove this and see what kind of errors we get. You're going to get some CORS errors, and it will say it doesn't know where your server is, I don't know how to talk to the server, and all those kind of issues. To solve those issues, this is what is required. Okay, and this is inside your client package. Okay, so basically you are telling your React app where the server is located, where what is the port number, what is the URL that your Node.js application is running locally. Okay, that's what the proxy is here for. Everything else we have seen, these are dependencies that your React uses, so we'll skip that. Okay, this is coming from your create React app. When you run that, it creates a package and that's everything else is coming from that. This is the only thing that does not come from that, and we have manually added that. Okay. All right, any questions on the folder structure? Does everybody understand what is going on, which is a client, which is a server? Okay, so go ahead and do a npm I install and then make sure everything is installed. Run locally on your port 3000, the React app should show up. If that works, then we'll go ahead and look at the deploy. How do we deploy this app? Okay, so I'm going to do the same. I will go inside my, oops. This is activity number 8. Create React Express. Okay, npm I. This should install everything. So you can see on the logs that it is installing the React ones now. Let's refresh. So there's a node modules folder on my server. Okay, this node modules had all the libraries from this package.json. If you open your client, you will have another node modules folder, and this has all the packages from this one. Yes. Private true. On the client. Not sure. What is it? Let's if set to true, then npm will refuse to publish it. What is it? Huh? What is it? Production versus development. If set to true, then npm will refuse to publish it. So what does that mean? npm will refuse to publish it. npm is a package manager, right? Right. This is required when you're making your packages that you want to push it to npm that website so that anybody else can download it. So if you set it to true, it's not going to go ahead and push it over there so that so somebody else can go ahead and use your projects when they do npm something. This is what it is. So when you're making a library for npm, when you do want to publish it, then you set it to false because that's the intent. For example, Axios. So if you look at your Axios package.json, they probably have this to false because Axios is something they want to publish it to npm so that people can download and start using it. That's what it means. Let's go back over here. Looks like this is installed. So we will run this npm start. This should show up. So my node server started running on port number 3001, and my React app is going to run on port 3000. Okay, so here's my app. Shouldn't have any issues, no errors. Let's make sure. Let's look at our console. Okay, what is this? Resource size is not correct in the manifest. Looks fine, but something wrong with the icon. Not important, but for some reason I kind of is bugging me. So what is in my manifest JSON? Oh, okay. So icon size is 192. What is our icon size? It is 64 by 64. Oh, that's interesting. Let's see if this fixes it. 64 by 64. App should start on its own again. Inspect. Oh, okay, that was it. All right. Not important, but I don't know, it kind of bugs me. All right. So this is my app installed. Other than the icon change, it still works. Okay. So this is your basic React app that you can use to create your projects and activities. All right. So that will be the folder structure. This folder structure allows you to create this whole. It's a full stack app. The code is not there for your APIs, but the structure is there. Okay, your node is included. You don't have to do anything else. Well, you have to create your APIs, controllers, MongoDB, and everything. But the folder structure contains all of those, right? Your client has your React app. Everything else over here is your Node.js. You are going to create your model, views, controllers, everything in this path over here, and then add your APIs, and that should be working. Okay, but it should be still the same template. Okay, just to make sure that this is deployable on Heroku, we'll go ahead and deploy this thing on Heroku, and it should come up exactly the same with the Heroku URL. Okay, all right. So the first thing is I need to add this to my GitHub. So I'm going to go to GitHub, create a repository quickly, and then push this code to Heroku. So I am going to create a new repository. I'm going to call it create React Express. Is that what I called? Create React Express. Okay. Public, not going to initialize to README. Do not add git ignore because everything is already in my folder over here. Okay, if you see over here, git ignore, README, everything is provided. We just need to push this code into our repository. So I'm going to create an empty one, not going to add anything, otherwise going to create a conflict. Create React Express, create repository. If you have done this right, you will see GitHub is smart enough to realize that you already have a local repository on your home and you're trying to push code to this one. So it looks like if you have done this thing before, yes, we have. I am now going to initialize my repository over here and push this code. Here, so you guys can see. And this is just simple git, and some of you might have already done this. Initialize git init. Okay. My repository has been initialized to GitHub. The next thing is we will commit. So git add everything. Okay. Git commit -m initial commit. Okay. So everything is committed. The next thing is they're saying get remote add origin and then put this URL. So that's what we will do. I'll pick this up. So I will say get remote add origin and the URL. So this way my local GitHub over here, my local Git repository is now connected to this one, the one that I just created. Okay. So did that. Let's verify. So we'll do git remote -v. Okay, looks like this is good. It's connected to this one. Now we can go ahead and push this. So git push -u origin master. I think if you even just do git push, it should work since it's already connected. This will push the code to my GitHub repository. Okay, let's go ahead and verify. And here's my code. Looks good. README, everything is working. All right. The next step is to push this to Heroku. Let's go back to our Heroku. Okay. All right. So I'm going to create my app here. Of course, I don't remember the steps. So let's do Heroku Node.js. Okay. Oh, actually, should be. Okay. Yeah. That's what I want. I don't because then I'll have to come up with a name. So, Kelly remembers all this step, but just to show you guys, I'm following the same documentation that's already over here. Okay, so we are here. So I need to log into my Heroku first. So let's see if this works. Heroku login. Okay. Logged in. Okay. And the next step is to deploy the app. So Heroku create and then git push Heroku master. So Heroku create. This is going to create a app, and then Heroku push. What is it?
Git
Oh, git push Heroku master. Thank you. So git push Heroku master, and that should go ahead and push this. All right. Hopefully this works the first time. For pushing it over there. Okay. So I'm hoping there are no errors. I think we followed everything. It should install and we should see our app deployed over there without any issues. Again, remember it has Node.js, so GitHub is not going to work. So we'll have to publish it to Heroku. Creating an optimized, the folder is ready. Okay, succeeded. So it looks like my React app is good. There it is. All right. Awesome. Let's go to our Heroku. Make sure this is up and running. I'm going to close this. Refresh. And there's my app, Pure Beach. Let's open this. And there it is. Okay. So I have deployed, I created, installed everything right in front of you guys. Okay. I hope I hope you guys are. I don't know how many of you followed, but it should be working. Okay. Any questions? All right. No magic, nothing. I just did everything right over here in front of you guys. All right. No GitHub, no nothing. So I'm hoping if there were issues with GitHub, they're not going to cause any issues over here. Okay. If the code is in the right place, you have the right files, this should work. Okay. Towards the end of the class, we will try to deploy the last activity. You guys are going to try deploying the last activity just to be sure that it is still working. Okay. All right. Any questions before we move on from this one and actually start doing some activities, adding our APIs, MongoDB, Express code? Everybody good? Okay. All right. So you guys are going to start activity number 9. Please read the activity, go through the instructions, and complete activity number 9. Okay. Don't have to deploy it right now, but it should be running locally. Description is there. Looks like, see which code do you have to modify. Do you have to modify the client one, or do you have to modify the backend one? Okay. Activity number 9. Okay. You do not require any of the hooks or anything. This is all our props, state, map, React router. There might be an activity for React router later on. But look at this activity. It starts from our basic React. I think it uses the props one. Then we are going to build from there. Okay, it's using the same template, same folder structure. So make sure you look through it, understand what each one of these means. Okay, what are the routes, what's over here, and where do you have to make these changes? activity number 9. Oh, that's taking a long time to just open up. Is it open for somebody? Oh, there we go. So it should show you something in console log. So type in chicken. Okay. So it looks like you're going to be mapping to the recipe list item component. The only changes are in your app.js. Source app.js. So recipes, recipe search, handle input change, handle form submit, render, recipe, render recipes here. Okay, so something on line 71. What you have to do on line 71, using recipe list component as a container, map over state.recipes and render component for each recipe object in this.state.recipe. Okay. So recipe list would be the parent. Within recipe list, you are going to render recipe list item in a loop, and you're going to pass these 4 that they have mentioned. But since we're using map, we know that they're missing one thing. So make sure, since you're using map, you know which property to pass. Title, href ingredients, thumbnail, and there should be one more. Looks like it's not mentioned. Maybe it's at the bottom. Let's see. Nope. Where is what?
They must be okay with having warnings in the console.
I guess. No, that's not acceptable over here. So. Especially if you can fix it. So. Let's see, what are we getting back? Title, thumbnail, ingredients, href. Okay, so the first part is simple, just looping through the recipe list item. And you're using the recipes from the state. And apparently it's hard-coded for now, and you should just see vegetables, something. Anything you type in. So recipe list component, and then within that component, the app.js, you're going to map the recipe list item, loop through them. Should be a simple loop. Hopefully you guys got to it. So for example, don't need this anymore because we're going to render our components. the first component is recipe list. Is it already here? Oh, there it is, recipe list. So it says recipe list should be the container, meaning that it should be the top component. So for example, recipe list component. Okay, and then within recipe list, you are going to loop through the recipe list items. So since I'm looping, I need the curly braces, and my array is called recipes, this dot state dot recipes from the state. So this is going to be this dot state dot recipes, okay, and the map function dot map, okay. It takes in 3 parameters. We'll forget about the first one. We'll just use the first one, and I'm going to call this is going to give each individual object. So I'm going to say recipe. No need for parentheses since it's going to be just one. And then within this, we are going to render our recipe list item. Recipe list items. Okay, and then within this, we need to pass in these properties, which are title, href, ingredients, and thumbnail, and these are coming from this thing. So title will be recipe dot title. Okay. What was the next one? Href ingredients. So href is going to be recipe dot href ingredients. So ingredients are going to be recipe dot ingredients. Okay, and the last property is thumbnail. So thumbnail is going to be recipe dot thumbnail. Okay, but since we are looping through, we know that we need the key property as well. So we need to pass in something as a key. If you look at the data, the most closest, I mean, I don't know if it's unique or not, but for now, I mean, among all these properties that we have, recipe.title seems the most unique for me. So we'll just use recipe. It has to be, something has to be passed in the key. Okay? So that should be, that's all for part 1. I hope everyone got it. That's all. So you have recipe list, and then you're looping through. Well, I shouldn't say that. Let's render and make sure if it is working. Huh? I knew it. Where is it? Line number 72. It shouldn't matter. No. No. This is from the state. So this should be this.
Oh, for your video.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what she said. Over here? Oh.
The next one's right. They all match. So
Oh.
They can do whatever. You can put whatever.
Yeah, this should be. This should still, as long as these match this one. I mean, I know this is wrong, but they all are incorrect. So this should still be working. I don't think that should fix it, but let's. Is it running? Compile successfully. Let's refresh it. Oh, I guess it's just icon. Here it is. Let me fix this as well quickly. Should be in our public manifest. 64 by 64. 64 by 64. Alright, so if I search, it should show my recipes. Okay, yeah, it's showing. It's kind of hard coded, so it should show exactly this. So anything you type in, but more important is it shows up something. And we will go ahead and fix this. So there's RECIPE. Okay. Should still work. Okay. So that was the objective of part 1. Okay. Move on to the next part. So this we tested, looks good. No matter what you search, it's hard coded, so that should show up. Okay, and that should be resolved in part 2. So work on part 2. This time looks like you're modifying the recipe list components. So you are fixing recipe list, this one. Okay, recipe list item components are displaying, hard-coded. Recipes modify recipe list component file so that it utilizes the past props. Okay, should be easy enough. So, okay, so these are being hard-coded. You just need to replace it with, just like your friend activity, you're going to replace it with props, which are being passed from the parent component with the same name, and we already have this over here. So this looks like props.title, looks like ingredients. Href would be props.href, and that should be it. And then when you run it, it should show up all your recipes to what you're searching. Oh, the thumbnail also. Okay, this needs to be replaced as well. Props.thumbnail, that should work. So this, for example, thumbnail, this is going to become props.thumbnail. This is going to become props.title. Ingredients, so we'll replace this with props.ingredients. This is fine, this has to be replaced, so this is going to become props.href. Anything else am I missing? That should be it. So let's go ahead and render. Oops. Refresh. And shipping. Okay, I'm getting the correct ones. Missing some thumbnails. Is it just because the internet is slow, or what's going on? Let's see. I'm getting the thumbnails back. Hrefs. Oh, the thumbnail is coming as empty. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so you should be getting these. All right, again, I hope every one of you should be able to be data revision. This is not complicated. The first activity, if you understand the props, you understand how to loop through. Those are the two concepts that we look at it. Looping through, and then just using the props. Those are the only two things that we did over here. Okay, I'm going to leave the bonus part. Bonus part is also not too bad. If it's an empty href, you just need to render a placeholder, and they already have the website over here. And you need an if condition or a ternary operator to fix this one. Okay, let's take a break. We'll start back at 7:45. I will take a 15, and we'll start on the next activity. All right, please make sure you understand this and this is running, because the next activities are going to be becoming a little bit more challenging than this one. Yes. Yeah, vegetable omelet is coming from your recipe list item. Did you fix the recipe list item? AppJS is fine. If those are coming, you need to use the props in your recipe list item. Yeah. Well, no, don't delete the whole heap. So the title, right? I replace the title with the props title, so that it pulls from the one. So wait, no. Oh, I want it to be. Oh, wait. Oh, so the statement is without work. Today, did they start working? Okay. You deleted everything like Chris said and started started read the whole app.
I just misspelled a word and then put a capital somewhere.
Oh.
With my dad. Put self-destruct mode.
You guys have your project groups? Maybe? What? Still working on it? Well, I hope it works out before Saturday because we're going to kick off Saturday project on Saturday. Hmm? Well, Saturday is the kickoff meeting. It starts week after that. Because we have no class on Tuesday for Martin Luther King, so that's a holiday, so we don't have a class on Tuesday. What is it? Let me see. Placeholder? Uh huh. What is it? Should be.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing.
I see, okay.
Bassum's having a weird. Bassum's having a weird thing where he set up his server to run on 3002, and he set up client to run on 3001. But when he runs start, it opens 3000, and then his Axios calls aren't working because it's like we
Did he
can't
update the proxy?
he put the proxy in there as 3001, but it's opening to 3000. And I'm like, I don't
Well, the
know.
app should open on 3000. This will be 3000. The React app is 3000. Your node is running on 3001.
So he changed his node to 3002
Okay.
and set the proxy to 3001.
No, proxy should match the node one. The proxy and the node are the same. Yeah.
There you go. You changed what?
All right. So next activity is activity number 10. All right. So let's go ahead and work on activity number 10. Activity number 10 now uses MongoDB. So make sure you read the instructions. It has the data. It tells you what to do. This is activity number 10. Okay. Again, this one is using Mongo database. So make sure you have the data and everything is in the instructions. How do you run it? How do you insert data in MongoDB? And then looks like there's only one file that you need to update, books.js. Okay. Should be, looks like a quick one. Make sure go through it. It's running and your MongoDB is also running. Look at the folder structure. That's what I was talking about. You see they have controllers, models, routes. So it's kind of trending towards the MVC model. These activities, I will upload the solution later on, but this is what your project structure should also be evolving and kind of be looking into. Kind of similar folder structures, okay, for your projects. So right now, changes are in book.js. Start MongoDB. All right, did you guys get this one working? So should be a fairly small change if you have all the setup correct. If you look at the hints, so the API, everything is already built for you. You just need to call the right function from your component did mount method in your books.js. If that is successful, you should start seeing some books over here. Of course, you need to have your MongoDB running and then run this npm run seed. So when I did this, there were 16 records that were inserted in MongoDB. Over here, it says 16. When I run that npm run seed, we have to write the code over here on books.js. So looks like the API is already done. So make sure you take a look at utils API.js. This is the function. Which one are we trying to call? Get books. So what it is asking. Use the API helper module API to return all the books. Okay. So it looks like get books is the one that you need to call. So class component should go in your component did mount. When the page loads, you are going to make that API call. Should be fairly something that we did. So component did mount. Okay. And then we are going to make that call to our API module, which is already defined. This is going to be API. Okay, it automatically imports this. So API dot get books, since we want all of them. Okay, this is it's returning the promise because it's returning the Axios call. So we have to use our then functions and all our async methods. So it's going to be dot then and then dot catch if there's any error. Okay, and so it should, when the request comes back, it should set the state books to equal to that array. Okay, this is the same one that we did for our before the React router one, where you are making an Axios call, getting all the Giphies. So in my then requires a callback function. We'll call it response, and this will set the state. So this dot set state. Okay, set state takes an object, and which one are we trying to fill? We are trying to complete this one, books. So it's going to be books and rest dot data. Okay, if there's any error, for now just log that error. Okay, and that should be it. Add code over here, gets a book from the databases. That should be it. So if you go back over here, let's refresh, and okay, we should be able to see all the books over here. So we imported 16, so this would be all the 16 books over here. Okay, for this activity, this should be the only change. I think so. Let's make sure. So open your browser. Currently shows the list. If successful, list of books should be rendered. And yeah. Okay. So we're using our component did mount. No API changes, nothing. We are just calling this. So when my page comes up, it makes an API call, gets all the books from my backend, especially if my MongoDB is running. It's getting all the books from our database. Okay. Again, please make sure you look into the APIs, see how where these APIs are. All the code is already here. It's not going to work if the code wasn't here. So if you look at your server.js, you look into your controllers, your models, these are all MongoDB classes, MongoDB code that is making all these calls. Okay. This code is already given. That's what I was talking about, that, you know, once you're doing your project, also make sure you understand each of these activity in detail, how this is being done, because you guys will be following, I think so, you'll be following the same model. And the reason is it's MVC, it has all the clear definition, what's going on, similar to kind of your project 2, but instead of Sequelize, it's Mongo and Mongoose. Okay? But for this activity, this should be the solution. Okay? So the next one is activity number 11. It takes the same activity. Start looking at activity number 11. It has a form, so it's going to be the same thing. I think you guys need to complete this part. So when I do a submit book, right now it doesn't do anything. So you're going to enter a title, author, and then some details about the book, and then do a submit book. So you need to make the form work. Okay? Remember the friends one, those examples that we did, same thing over here. So this would be activity number 11. Number 11, yeah. Let's see, activity number 11. Let's do a npm ix since this is a new project. So two parts to it. First one looks like you're modifying the book.js. State, titles, author, synopsis, And then you need to update the form button code. So looks like all of this goes inside your books.js. Okay, so they already have the method over here that we completed in the previous activity. So the name properties on each input. Input components. Okay, here's our input component. So when the input changes, you need to capture what's being typed in. Remember the handle input change or on change method? That's what looks like. That's what you need to implement over here and capture what is being typed in title, author, and then synopsis. You're going to be setting state in that method. Looking at the previous activity, if you want a refresher, it looks like we need to complete the handle input change event over here. So in this case, we are adding two attributes over here to our inputs. The on change one and then the value. Remember, this is a uncontrolled component right now. The reason is we are not overriding the value attribute. So this tells me this is uncontrolled. So we need to make it controlled. So you need to override the attribute value. Look into the previous activity and the value should be coming from the state. Same for this one, same for this one, and it should be the same for this one as well. All of these are uncontrolled components right now, so you'll have to add two attributes. The first one is going to be the value. The second attribute is the on change, so that every time somebody types something in, we are going to capture that. And then you're going to add a on handle change function so that you capture each what is being typed in. Similar to our Giphy activity that we did. Look at the input tags over there. You will see value and on change, and that's what we need to do over here. And once you have the handle input change, then work on the on click one. So we need to add the on click for our button as well.
Right. That's yeah. That's what it is.
The what?
You can write it. Eternity.
From the database? Okay, so I can go it over for 11 also, it's the same code. 11 and 10 both are same. Okay, so how do we get the data from our database? We need to have an APIs, right? So an APIs are built in Node.js, right? So all my code is going to be outside the client folder, right? Everything in the client is React part, so I don't have to worry about that. Okay, so I start from my server.js. All right, so I have my Mongoose. Looks like Mongoose is being used, and they have routes, so HTML routes and API routes. Okay, same as your Node.js applications. Okay, so server.js is just kicking off the Node server, and looks like it has routes, and it's using Mongoose. So Mongoose setup. This is a URL which is running on our localhost. Okay, so that's the server.js. Let's look at the routes. So these are the routes that are defined for each one of them. Looks like I have a home route, which is looking for API books. And then if you pass an ID, it's looking for, if you pass an ID, it's going to get called this. Okay, so this is the same thing when we did our MVC model in project 2 and later on. So we have a controller. So it looks like from our routes, we need to look into the controller file, right? It's building all the controllers. And why is this calling /API/books? Of course, there's no answer over here. So we need to go into our controllers. If you go into our controllers, you will see it has all these functionalities. Okay, first function find all goes to Mongoose, goes to the model book, runs that query, and brings all of them by, looks like sorted by descending order of date. So the latest date should be first one. Okay, sets it to the model, returns the JSON file. All right, find by ID. Find by ID is calling the Mongoose find by ID method, passes the ID which is in your rect params, and returns the JSON. Okay, create using the safe method This is going to go ahead, get the data from the request body and add it to the Mongo table, Mongo collection, which is books. Okay, update. They're using the find one and update. So it looks like if you find a record matching this ID, go ahead and update it. Okay. Remove is the destroy or the delete functionality. So what they're doing is they are calling, they're searching the Mongo collection for that ID. Once you get that ID, once you get that record, it goes ahead and removes it from the model. Okay. So how is this all connected? So we have our, let me go ahead and minimize this. So it looks like we have our client, which is our React app. Okay, so that's all the React code. Starts from server.js. Okay, makes a call to routes. Routes have controllers, are importing controllers, which has all the code for these functionality to find by ID, create, update, and remove. Okay, I'm going to close this. Oops. Okay, so server.js kicks off a node server, calls routes. Routes are calling controllers, and controllers are then making those database calls to Mongo using Mongoose. Okay, and what are models? Models are the collections that we had defined in our Mongo database. Right now, we just only have one, so that's the book one. This is all the code that we studied to create a Mongoose model. That's how all these are connected. Now, so these are my APIs that are in my backend. How are these being called from my client? So if you look at your client code, open the source, go into APIs, utils, and API. Okay, what is this going on? This is making an Axios call. What does Axios do? Makes an Ajax call. Okay, now what is it making a call to? This one. Now our React app doesn't know. It is Axios is expecting a URL. If you type this in, it is, if you look in your console, you will see it automatically adds localhost slash 3001. If you look in your console, you will see eventually Axios is making a call to localhost slash 3001 slash API slash book. Okay. Now, where is this localhost 3001 coming from? Remember, I talked about this in the beginning of the class. Where is localhost 3001 coming from? From what? No. From the proxy, from the package JSON. So on your client side, if you open up your package JSON, you have this proxy overhead. That's the significance of this. If you have this proxy and you make a call without a URL in the beginning, it will go and look for this proxy and it's going to add this URL to the beginning of this thing. Now, if you go ahead and remove this proxy over here, you will start getting errors in your code. How do you fix it? If you don't want proxy, then you will have to put this exact URL in front of over here like this. Okay. Now, when you put this and you remove the proxy from there, this will work, but now you will see as you're going to start getting CORS issues. Okay, you're going to get cross browser authentication. Chrome is going to start streaming. It won't let you make those calls, and this only occurs when you have localhost. Now, is this correct? Even though if it was working, if you deploy this to Heroku, is this link going to work? It's not going to work. So that's why we do not hard code the local host, especially if the APIs are in our same folder, same structure. We don't hard code that link over here because this you might be able to make it work for your local host. When you deploy it, this is going to break. Okay, so all we do is we do this, and this is working because there's a proxy. Every time there's a localhost call, it will go ahead and play this. Okay. Now, when you deploy to Heroku, your React app is smart enough. If you type in something like this, like /API/books, it is assuming that you have a node app that is running somewhere within it. So it will make that assumption. So when you deploy it to Heroku, Heroku has their own URL, and it's going to go ahead and look for /API/books somewhere within itself. So it's going to go over here look for these routes. It's going to find server.js running, and it's going to start calling those routes. Okay, so that's how it's all connected. So your front end and your back end, that's the most confusing part. Your front end and your back end are in the same folder. Okay, your client's folder has all your React code. Everything else is backend. Okay, your controllers are backend using the MVC model. Your models are backend. These are all your Mongoose or SQLize. Now in your project, you have an option to either use MongoDB or SQL, MySQL. Okay, but whichever you use, it doesn't matter. You will still have the exact same folder structure. Your models will be your SQLize model. If you're using MySQL, then you have to use SQLize. Okay, if you're using MongoDB, you have to use Mongoose. That's the requirement. So pick one. But you still will have models folders. This will be all your tables or your collections, depending on which database you're using. Controllers is how your routes are being connected, and your server.js is the one that's calling these things. Okay, if you look up your server.js, you will see the Mongoose connection. Once you have deployed it to Heroku, this is all going to pick up. This is all from your previous homework, same code, no changes over here, and that's how your app is running. Okay, let's go back to our routes. How you are not what? So if you open up the index.js, which is on your routes, okay, you will see this mapping over here. So it is mapping this API in front of that, and then it's calling this. So what this does is, it's going to add /API to all the routes that it is being called. So anything that gets imported over here, it puts it over here, and it's going to add /book/book/id. So this is if once you're working, you will see this is Java has this functionality, C# has this. So whatever the common thing is, like for example, all your APIs are going to have be /API/book/API books ID /API/books create, whatever, right? So /API is common. So you will see that there's a pattern where you take out the common part, put it at one place, so that you don't have to keep writing /API in front of everything. So this part over here, which is inside your API folder index.js file, you will see that this gets added to every single route that you have that is being inside your API routes, which is inside your API folder. And why do you have not why don't you have to mention the books.js? Remember, if you have index.js, Node.js automatically imports everything that is inside that folder. So since there's an index.js file, it is going to go ahead and import every single file in that folder. So that's why you don't have to mention /books. But in actuality, this is actually calling the books.js. Okay, so that's how you don't have to add everything next to. So when you're working on your project, I would highly recommend follow the same route. Instead of books.js, you will have, let's say, recipes.js. Okay, your index, this one is going to remain exactly the same. I don't think there's any change required. We can just copy paste over here, because you see, it's not specific to any route. But just by looking at this index.js, you cannot tell if it's calling a books collection or a recipe collection or anything else. Okay, so you can exactly use the same folder structure. The only changes are you will have your own routes over here, of course, like recipes or something. You're going to change this and add more collection, however many collection you have. And I'm talking from the perspective of MongoJS, but it's same as MongoDB. It's same as MySQL as well. Okay, same folder structure. Nothing changes for MySQL. The only changes are your how do you instantiate, how do you initialize the SQL models, right? This is code from Mongoose. You would replace it with your MySQL. That's the only difference. Folder structure, calling part, everything should remain the same. Okay. Again, this is a helpful one because it is following MVC. But if you want to do something different, you are welcome. The only requirement is it has to follow MVC design pattern. And this pretty much follows MVC. Your models, all your views are inside your client, and then you have your controllers. Does that make sense? Amy? That's how these are all connected. Okay? What about this activity? Were you guys able to complete this one? So the two attributes I said you need over here, right? So we need a value and the event. Let me make it in a new line so that you can nicely see it. Okay, so we need a value, and value is going to have, remember the value should be coming from the state, right? So this, it's going to be this dot state dot title. Okay, and the second one is our on change event. On change. Oops. Okay, and this is, we're going to pass in a function, and we will call it handle input change. We have not defined this method, so we'll have to define it, otherwise you will start getting errors. Okay, same thing, you're going to do the same thing for the other components as well. So add the value, and the value should be pulling from the state. So first case is title, this would be author. So let's go ahead and add our author, and then, so this would become, value is coming from the state. So this is going to be this dot state dot author. Okay, and on change, we are going to call our this dot handle input change. Again, we have not defined this method yet. We are just stubbing it out, and we will define it on the top. Okay, let's go ahead and add our value. It's going to be this dot state dot synopsis. Okay, and then our on change event, on change, which is going to be our method this dot handle input change. Okay, so now these are all control components because we are overriding the value attribute it is getting from the state, right? Next is to define our handle input change. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do it over here. So this is going to be handle input change. I'm going to get a argument parameter which is going to be an event. Let's call it event. For this case we won't be using it, but that's how I'm going to get that event. Okay, we're going to use the same code, object destructuring from our previous activity. We're going to extract the name and the value out from it, and this would be in our event dot, what was it, target. Okay, we're actually using event. Okay, so now I have name and value, and then we need to set our state, right? So this dot set state takes in an object, and we're going to use our property name and set the value. Remember, if you don't do this, then you have to find out which input box was it clicked for. If you don't do this, then you have to have, you need to know if this was clicked, or this was this is the one that is changing, or is a text area changing. But with this, with our ES6 property one, we can get the name and then update the value for whatever the name is coming from. Okay, exact same code that we have looked at before in the previous activity, right? There's nothing, no change over here. The same thing you can literally just copy paste from the previous activities and bring it over here. All right, just make sure you understand what is going on. So this way, if this is working, as soon as I type something in, my values should be setting. Let's go back over here. Did I stop? Okay. npm start. Okay. Let's look at the second part. Oh, there was a button click. Okay. So when you call the button click, it should go ahead and save that. It should call the save book method. So let's look at where our button is. There's our submit button. So we will add our property, our function on event handler on click, and then we will say this dot form. Let's call it handle form submit. Oops. Okay. We will go ahead and define this same function on the top over here. We call it handle form submit. It's going to get an event as well, and this will be it. Okay. So since this is a button submit, the first thing we do is prevent default. So we will do event dot prevent default. Okay. And the next thing is being said is that we call the API dot save. Okay. So let's look at our API method for save and see what it is expecting. It's expecting an object. So we need to pass an object with book information. Okay, so there's my submit button. I'm going to call my API dot save book. Okay, it's a async method, so let's go ahead and do our then dot catch. Okay, so in my save book I need to pass an object with book details. And what do I need to pass in? I need to pass in title, author, and synopsis. Okay, so let's say title is going to be from the state, so this dot state dot title. Author is going to be this dot state dot author, and then synopsis is also going to be this dot state dot synopsis. Okay, let's complete our async function. So it's going to return a result, and what do we do when our result is saved? We can just load the books again so that we can see the new book. Okay, once we make the change and it is successful, we need to see that book pop up, book added to the list. All right, so what do? We call the load books method again so that it goes ahead, makes a call again, and gets the new one as well. So we will say call the method this dot load books. Okay, and if there's any error, just console log that error. For now, console.log error. Okay, so click save the book, pass in the data from our state. This is going to go ahead and add it to our Mongo database. If it is successfully added, it's going to load the books again, call this function. And if you look in the top, this function is going to make a call again, and it should get that book as well. Okay. Was there anything else, or this was it? Okay. For part one, this should be all. So let's go ahead and run this and see if it shows up. Okay. So these are my books. If this is good, go ahead and add a new book. Okay, if I click submit, it should show up over here because we are calling the load function again. So I'll go ahead and submit the book. reloads, and here's the book shows up. Okay. All right. So we are using the APIs. We are saving the book. The next part is part 2 is make the delete button work. So over here right now the delete doesn't work. Remember our friend one, we are going to say we have to follow the same logic. So when this X is pressed, it should go ahead and delete that book. So if you look at your JSX, let's find where that X button is. It's not inside our books. Let's go back and look at the so that when the delete button, the component is clicked, the bullet is deleted, and the results are updated. You should create a new method, delete book on books component, and make that call. Okay. But where is this X? Do you see it? 91. Okay, there it is. Okay, so there's this whole X is actually a new component. That's cool. So if let's look at our components, let's find a delete button. Okay, so there's the X. Remember this spread operator? That's what's being used over here. You don't have to modify anything over here, but that looks, so this is the whole axis over here. Okay, that's what I was trying to find. Thank you. So what do we have to do? We have to add a new method called delete. Okay, and remember we need to pass an ID so that we know which book is being deleted, right? Where's our we should create a new method called delete book. So go ahead and create a new method called delete book, pass an ID because we need to know which book is being deleted. And so let's see over here. List item, there's the ID. You get an ID, shows the ID over here, your delete button. Let's look at this one more time. Does it have an ID? Okay. Spread all puffs. Nope, doesn't look like. Okay. First, let's go ahead and create that function, and then we will find where it goes. So it's called delete book. So we need to create a new function called delete book. Okay. It is going to expect an ID so that we know which book to be deleted. And in this case, we are going to call the delete function. So let's look at a delete book, takes an ID. So we would call it API dot delete book. We're going to pass an ID. Of course, this is an async method, so we are going to have dot then and then dot catch. Okay, let's put this in our new line. What do we have to do in the delete book? Same thing that we did for the save. We need to reload these books so that the screen is updated with the new book being deleted. So we will go ahead and do this dot load books. Okay, and then error console log error. Okay, let's see, let's go back over here. Books are delete from the database, component is click. From the database, the books are displayed or updated. To accomplish this, we created this on the books component, and which calls a delete book when delete button is clicked. Okay. Looks like we don't have to, shouldn't be making any more changes, and this should be working. Let's go back over here. So each one of them has a delete button. So you should be getting all the props. Doesn't look like we are passing anything in delete button props. Are we? Run this and see if this is working. I don't think it should work because we have the method defined, but we are not passing any properties to our delete functionality. Okay. Is it the next activity? Let's see. React router. Nope. Okay. But that's okay. We know what needs to be done. So if you click this right now, let's refresh it. Make sure this is running. It shouldn't work. Yeah. And the reason is we have the function, right? We have the function over here, but nobody is calling this function. And who should be calling this function? This function should be being called from our delete button. Okay, it's getting the props, but we are not passing anything in our props over here. So we'll have to complete this part as well. So we need to pass in, what do we need to pass in? We need to pass in ID. We need to pass in the delete function so that this prop is able to call this. So let's go ahead and complete this. Let's make it a new line. We'll pass in a property called onClick. So when this is called, it should call a function. Okay. Remember, all your event handlers can only take in a function without any arguments, and it is going to give it an event. But that's not what we want here. We want to pass an ID over here, right? We have the function over here on the top, which is expecting an ID. So we cannot simply use this syntax over here. Okay, so we need to wrap this around a function. So we'll wrap this around a anonymous function, arrow function, and then call our this dot delete book. Okay, delete book requires an ID. How do I get an ID? Looks like on line number 33 you can do book.id. So we can do the same thing over here. We'll say book dot underscore ID. Okay, again, please go back and review the previous activity if you have not done. We talked about this syntax a lot. Basically, you are wrapping this inside another function call. Okay, don't need the parentheses. Otherwise, you have to put the return keyword. This should return on its own. Okay, now this looks complete. So when this is clicked, it should call the delete book, and this should go ahead and delete that book. Is there another delete book? There should be. Okay, so let's refresh, make sure this is updated. Now if I go back and delete this, okay, there it goes. Okay, the book has been deleted. Maybe one more. This is working. Okay, so it deletes it and then goes ahead and updates this component. You see, it looks like it's almost there. It's not even rendering. This is the good part about React. Our components are divided. Only this component is being updated, so that's why you see this video. Everything else remains the same. Okay, that's why you need to make sure you have enough components, logical components, so that when the update happens, only those components are getting. We don't need to reload this. We don't need to reload this component. Neither this, neither this. All of these are redundant. The only thing that needs to reload is this part. So that makes it looks like it's like working like super fast, but it's actually making the call, coming back, only re-rendering this one. Okay, let's go back over here, and those should be the only changes in this one. Okay, the last one is, let's look at the last activity. Well, second last, we have to deploy. You are going to be using routers, React router. Okay, so it looks like it's missing some routes. So if I click this, it should take me to, if you look at the bottom, it should take you to this route. Hover over on your application and you should see it has a route at the bottom. But if you click right now, it goes to the route but doesn't do anything. Okay, so it looks like our routes are not defined. So in the last activity, which is number 12, you look at the code and you have to define the routes. All of the code that we just did should already be available in activity number 12. what you have to do is look into the routing part. So let's look at our activity number 12. Activity number 12. As you read, let me go ahead and do an npm I. Takes a while over here. Oops. This is 12. So look in the part 1, look in the app.js and set up those routes. So you have to set up 2 routes, home route and /books. So the home and routes should both render the books component page. Okay. Remember the components. You can use switch. Start with router, then routes. Use switch, then routes, and define 2 routes. Slash should take you to both of them should take you just to the books component for now. Okay. And then part 2 is notice that inside the pages folder we have a no match component. Okay. Add a route for the new no match component. So any time somebody goes to a page that does not exist, your no match component should be loaded. So you have to create a route for no match as well. So 3 routes. Slash, which is your home route, /books, and then no match. You will need to use the switch component. So go back to the React router activity and then make sure you are using that. Okay. Let's look at our package JSON to see if our if the client includes the React router. Okay, it's there, so you don't have to install anything separately. If you did an npm I, you should get that. So all the changes looks like are going to be in your app.js. Okay, and you can see it's missing the routing over here. Okay, look at the previous example from your React router activity that I did last time and see if you are able to set up those routes. So 3 routes, /books, and then home. No match. Start. should not use link outside a router. Okay. So if you run the unsolved one, this is what you will get, and makes sense because we have not defined any of the routes over here, so it's not actually working. So your books component should be called inside a route. So you actually don't need books anymore over here. Nav remains. Remember from the previous activity, we have nav, so that's good. Wrap this whole thing in a router, import those browser router components, and then add a switch, create the routes slash books, and then the last one was no match. You guys get the route? So as I said, you don't need books over here because we are going to load this in a route, right? So you don't need this. Remember from our activity, start from router, switch, and then route. So let's go ahead and first import our components, which are our browser routers. So import browser router as the convention. Okay, and then we need route, and then we need switch. Okay, and all of these are coming from create router DOM. Okay, so everything goes inside our router. So let's go ahead and create our router. Okay, and all of this should be wrapped around router as the parent. Right, so nav tabs remains the same, no change over here. Then we need our switch statement. So we will do our switch, no, wrong switch. Oops, switch. Okay, and within our switch we will have a route. So route. So our first route is going to be our home. So we will do path is slash, and what should it render? It should render the component books. Okay. We saw the reasons why do we need exact over here, so we'll put exact so that it only renders this one and doesn't render the next one. Oops. All right, so that's our first route. Let's add the same thing. The next one is going to be slash books, and it should render the same one. Okay. The last one is no match. Okay, so I don't need any path. I just need a component. And why? If you type in anything other than home and slash books, I want my no match to render. Okay, so basically this is saying if it matches, and remember the switch one, as soon as switch finds, it's going to render the route and exit out. Okay, so if it finds the first one, good, renders out. If it finds the second one, renders and good. We don't need the exact over here for now. Okay, if it doesn't find any one of them and you have typed in something different, it should pull up the no match one. Okay, so let's test this out. Refresh. So my home is working because remember the page wasn't even showing up the first time. Okay, and if I go to slash books, it should still render the same page which I'm at currently. So still works, shows up over here. If I go to any other page other than these two, this should give me an error. For example, if I do a typo and add another S, it should take me to the no page. Looks like no match is a 404 not found. Okay, so if your routes are set up correctly, you should be able to see all these routes working. So home slash books, both of them are rendering the same page, same component. If you type anything else, it should render your 404, which is because of this. Okay? Hopefully it looks familiar. I'd be super disappointed if it doesn't. So yes, please nod so that I feel better about myself. Yes. Awesome. You guys are getting it. That's awesome. Okay. What is this a little bit, so we did the first part, second part is done. Third part is the details component. So open up the detail component and see what are they saying. They're saying you need to, if you go to a route called slash books slash ID, it should render the detail component. Okay, that's the first step. So if you go to your app.js, the first part is we need to create a route. If you pass an ID, okay, oh, that's not how you pass an ID. It should render the details components. So let's go ahead and complete them. Okay. Remember, if you don't put exact, then what's going to happen? It's going to, if you pass an ID, the first one is going to match, right? Because these both are similar. So it's going to match the first one and exit out. So that's why we will have to go ahead and put an exact over here so that my ID route works. Okay. It's not complete yet. Why? Because route and setup, but we need to make some changes in our details. Okay. If you look into your detail page, it doesn't have the code to render to bring up that book. Okay. So what do we have to add? Remember our component did mount. So we are going to call our component did mount, and then it should call the API.getBook, get this ID, and then remember the props that I showed you. Remember the routes are passing some default props over here. So if you go back over here, click this. Let's go back to our inspect. Let's go to our components. Go to our, here's my detail. Okay, if you look up this, looks like they're saying details, then params.id, you are getting this ID. Okay, again, remember every router gives you some default properties. And where is this ID coming from? It's coming off from this route that you have defined on app.js. This ID gets replaced with that big ID over there. Okay, and how does your detail component gets that ID? It's getting this ID by the default components that are being passed in. It's inside your match. So props.match.params.id. That's how you retrieve that ID. Okay, and why do we need this ID? We need this ID to call our API.getBooks method. So let's open up our API.getBook method. Requires an ID, and this is the method that we need to call in our component did mount. Okay, so override component did mount method. Okay, and then we need to call our API.getBooks. So API.get, single one, need to pass an ID. We'll come back and complete that. Dot then dot catch. Okay, now getBook requires an ID, and we are getting this ID in our props, right? So, oh, it's already mentioned over here. So we need to do this dot props dot match dot params dot id. Okay, and we saw that in our inspect in our Chrome browser as well, that the ID was coming inside this parameter. Okay, if it is successful, we need to set the state for book. Okay, so we'll do set state, takes an object, and object is called book on line number 9. So it's going to be book, and we will just say rest.data. Whatever data that comes back, because we are getting a single book, so we know it has to return an object. So we are going to take this object and set it to our state over here. Okay, if there's any error, and then console log that error. Okay, so we can see if there's any error. Okay, again, why do we need to update the state? You can see it so that the book over here, this is being used. If you don't set the state, none of these will be rendered properly. So once you get the book, once your page loads, your component comes up, it should get the book to the ID that you passed. Make a callback to MongoDB, get that book, and show it on your screen. So if you go back over here, well, it already works, so let's go back. So we go back to our books route. Still working. If I just go to my home route, this is also working. Now if I click on any one of these, if you see at the bottom of your page, you will see it is calling book slash and some ID. So all of these IDs are in your screen. Just need to get some details. So if I click this, it goes to this ID, and now we have defined the route. It gets the data from our Mongo database and then shows up the data from there. Okay, you can go back over here, click on a different one, still shows up. This is the route that we have defined. We are passing the ID, and then this function gets called, passes the ID, comes back, and shows it over here. Go back over here, and let's go back to dot. Similarly, you can go ahead and add the submit should also be working. Submitted, your book should show up. If you click it, it should open up the details for that book. Let's go back here. Okay, so we started with our app.js, updated our routes, and then the last part was to adding the route for detail. We added that route. We are passing an ID. So we are picking that ID and making a call to our books database using the get book. Okay, any questions? Please make sure, yes, there you go. On app.js, browser router as router, we are renaming it so that we can use over it. If you don't put as, then you will have to put browser router over here. Any questions? Again, these are really good activities that are going to help you complete the homework and also your project. It kind of completes, fulfill all the requirements. Okay. The last part is deploying this code. Okay, so I showed you the Create React Express app, going to be the same one. If you completed this activity, take a look at it, see if you can deploy this code, create an app. Since this is using Mongo database, you would have to add the mlab one, which you guys did in the previous activity. So it should be working as it is. Create a GitHub, deploy this code, push the code over there, connect to Heroku, deploy it to Heroku, and I think you need to add a mlab one and use the same connection in your update the connection over here. Well, it gets updated in your Heroku, so you don't have to make any changes in your scripts. Am I seeing this route? Okay, so your Heroku should be updating the URI, so you don't have to worry about anything else. Okay, so that's the last one. Make sure you deploy. Shouldn't be any issues. The only issue that I see is when you have mlab added. I don't know if the internet still blocks it, but until previous cohort, the internet over here, the super awesome Wi-Fi over here blocks any connection to databases. I'm not sure if is it still the case with your Mongo homework? Anybody knows that? You can access through Heroku? Oh no, if I deploy my app and it works, okay, then you shouldn't have any issues. Is the sequelized one that doesn't work? Okay, so it looks like Mongo's is working, so that should be good. Okay, that's the last part. Deploy. Any questions on anything else? Okay. So before we move on to the homework part, on Saturday, I'm going to be talking about Saturday is dedicated for your project, and we are going to kick off the project on Saturday. Okay, and Saturday just means it's introduction to the project. Okay, we will make sure everybody is in the group. Everybody has an idea. That's what we'll be spending Saturday on. Okay. Tuesday, there's no class because of Martin Luther King holiday, so there's no class on Tuesday. We'll come back on Thursday, and for the last week, we have one more lesson, which is more around algorithms and data structures. Really cool. I love that week. But that's the last topic. Okay, it has nothing to do with React or anything. We're going to look at some algorithms in JavaScript. Okay, that would be the last week lesson, and then after that is projects. Okay, to save some time, I'll introduce project on Saturday. We'll talk about project. I will show you these requirements again. Make sure everybody is assigned to a group, and then you're going to come up with your project. Give me a template like previous ones. Get it approved, and that will be all Saturday. If you have any questions, anything that you want me to go over, we can discuss on Saturday, but that's the major part on Saturday. Okay, requirements must use React.js, of course, otherwise kind of defeats the purpose of me revising 2 extra days. Node and Express server. you can either use MySQL or Mongo. Okay, if you're using MySQL, definitely need to use SQLize. If you're using Mongo, you need to use Mongoose. Okay, pick one. Get and post out just like your second project. Don't have to talk about that. For deploy in Heroku, obviously. Must utilize two libraries, package or technology. Let me make this clear. If you read the next point after that, it says authentication is a must. So authentication library is not included in these two things. Previous project, I let it go. It was okay. This time, no. Okay, we are more experienced. We have a lot more skill set. So please don't come to me asking, what is it? That was for not for React. For I will talk about this. I'll talk about that. You can use my code. It's fine, but that code was built for a JavaScript app. It wasn't done using React, so you'll have to majorly rewrite it. I'll talk about the authentication in a minute. Okay, but I just want to make clear these 2 points over here. These two libraries are other than the authentication. Authentication is required right now. Okay, is that clear? Please don't come to me asking, oh, you cannot use authentication as your second library. All right. Now, for authentication in the previous project with JavaScript, we use Passport.js. For React, they have a really good authentication. It's called Auth0. I would highly recommend using Auth0 if you are. It's called Auth0, right? It's just like Passport.js, but built for React. Okay, Auth0 is a really good one. I won't say super easy, but they have a lot of tutorials. A lot of people have actually made courses around just making React with Auth0. Should be pretty okay. Okay. I don't promise if I will give you a template that has Auth0. I don't know. I might not. Please don't depend on me. So it depends on my mood. If I'm in a mood for coding Auth0, I might. If not, then I don't want you guys expecting that you'll get a template or something. Okay, but highly recommended. Auth0 is a really good one. People have used it and should be fairly quick to add to your React project. They have especially for React. Okay, Polish front end. Again, I don't have to mention that the project tools were amazing. Like I don't know if there was any project that did not have a Polish. This is actually my first cohort that has such a nice Polish front. I don't know what was different. Maybe because authentication was in. People spend a lot of time in getting authentication. Maybe that's why. I don't know what it was. But front end was already good, so make sure you keep up with. MVC, I already talked about it, showed you the folder structure. You can use the same same folder structure, and that should qualify for your MVC. If you're using the template, the starter code from your Create React Express that I showed you in the beginning of the class, and then all these examples over here, if you are following the same strategy, this automatically completes your MVC module. Okay. Good quality standards and do not expose your sensitive API. That's all. Okay. Well, talk about more. I'll just repeat this on Saturday as well and a few more slides. Please make sure when you come on Saturday, hopefully everybody has a group, maximum 4. All right. I hope I don't have to step in and start finding groups for people. Okay. Sit in the group. We'll complete some activities on Saturday. All right. Any questions? Everybody clear? All right. So Lee is going to do the honors for the last homework of this course.